Hey everybody, it's Lisa from We H.E.A.R.T, Florida. We're back again with another installment of From the Heart, and this time we are speaking with Curt. Curt is here to tell us his story of incarceration, wrongful conviction, and I'm going to let him tell you in his words his story. So without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, this is Curt.
Thanks for having me.
Curt, thank you so much for giving us your time and taking this time to talk with us here at Heart. Go ahead and introduce yourself and let everyone know a little bit about your story before we dive into some questions.
My name is Curtis Schuler, and I'm 39 years old. I've been in prison for 23 years for a crime that I did not commit. There was no physical, scientific, DNA, fingerprint, GSR, victim identification, bacterial evidence linking me to this crime. I had 14 alibi witnesses, 11 of which testified as to my whereabouts around the time frame when this homicide occurred.
Wow.
The state's two key witnesses both recanted their trial testimonies and testified that they lied on me to protect themselves. Let's be honest, I wasn't the first, and I certainly won't be the last man to get wrongfully convicted of a crime. But I've chosen not to become bitter as I try to, and those that support me try to straighten this situation out. An accusation is only an accusation until it's proven. And it's got to be proven by real and convincing evidence. This is truly a dilemma that this nation has grappled with for centuries, where innocent men are trampled over by the power and weight of an unequal system of justice. I'm not saying that my life has been perfect, but I am saying that my life is worth saving. I was initially charged with first-degree murder, carrying, displaying, or using a firearm, armed burglary with assault and battery, while carrying, displaying, or using a firearm. I was also charged with shooting into an occupied vehicle while wearing a mask. The jury found me not guilty of carrying, displaying, or using a firearm in all counts, shooting into an occupied vehicle, armed burglary, making an assault or battery on the victim, wearing a mask to conceal my identity. Now, according to the law, you can't convict me and acquit me of the same crime. They acquitted me of everything it took to constitute this crime in the court of law.
Curt, if you could go ahead and expand on and tell us what is your current sentence?
My current sentence is life with a judicial review after 25 years imprisonment. I was sentenced under the new juvenile law as having actually killed, intended to kill, and attempted to kill the victim in my case. But the jury made a determination during trial that I never assaulted, battered, threatened, or shot anyone. The jury found that I never carried, displayed, or used a firearm.
Wow. So you were 16 years old. You were a kid. You were a kid, and you got in a little bit of trouble, and really not even on the wrong side of the law, but you were sentenced to life at 16. How that you spent a majority of your youth in prison, your late teens and into your 20s and now beyond. I'm just having a hard time wrapping my mind around the whole sentence to life at 16 for after being acquitted. I mean, many of the advocates that I know, we all know, our system is so desperately flawed and just, horribly broken. But to sentence a 16-year-old kid to life after being acquitted by a jury, it's really hard to wrap your mind around that type of sentence. I have to ask you this at this point, and it's probably a little bit of a tough question, but if you could go back and change the events leading up to your arrest and subsequent conviction, what would you do? What would you do differently? How has this changed you, or has it changed you?
Looking back on this situation, I know that incarceration can bring the very best out of a person, or it can bring out the absolute worst. Had I allowed the prison mentality to take root in my mind, I would be a very bad person and in a very bad position. However, I refuse to accept this crazy idea that the whole world is against me and that nobody loves me. It opened the gateway to my heart, and I learned how to love people and treat people right. I learned empathy in the silence of these cells, and although it has been a very traumatic experience for me, emotionally and physically, I survived. If I could go back and change my actions, absolutely. I mean, I was swept up in a terrible situation where people lost their lives. Albeit I am no murderer, I bear the scars of a life lost. I've gained knowledge about myself and the world. My eyes were opened for the people, and maybe one day, because I bore this pain in my youth, I'll be a beacon of light for someone else that may be in a very bad situation or caught up in some circumstances that they just don't know how to control.
That question wasn't the toughest question. Wow, just really tough to listen to a lot of the details. And I don't want to minimize anything that's happened to this point, but you've weathered a tremendous storm, and you seem to have come out of it or come through it for the better. But and I commend you for that. I mean, that's just amazing because there is nothing positive about prison. But what was it like when you first entered into the prison system as a 16-year-old kid? Could you share a little bit of that with us and for the listeners, to give them a glimpse to what, you know, life in prison or life on the inside looks like, especially as a kid? So in your own words, what was that like for you?
I had to grow up in prison, surrounded by society, stowaways, child molesters, killers, robbers, druggies, gang members, perverts. These were my examples that I had to follow in this place. I had to adapt in this environment as a 16-year-old, get swallowed up by it. So I had to fight for my sexuality, fight for my possessions, my pride, and I did, and I won. Every day it's a struggle to stay above the grime, you know. Falling is just one step removed from standing, and I refuse to get caught up in this web of perversion that exists in this place that people don't see. So incarceration has helped me to see the vices that destroy our communities. And because I was young and exposed to this environment, I am determined to do something about it. I was denied my rights. I didn't have to change for the better or the worse. I just needed to grow up. I didn't have a way of life or an attitude that had taken root in my mind, but I made a choice that I was not going to be like any of the characters that I mentioned earlier. So I learned how to physically protect myself. I earned my GED when I was 19. I've got over 2,000 hours of program time in the faith and character-based program, certificates in classes such as victim impact, anger management, Quest, Reefs, credit and debt management, cultivating effective leadership. I'm a Toastmaster, and so on. I have an associate's degree in biblical studies through IBTC and Relevant Church. You see, some of the things I've done, even with a life sentence, speak to the character that I have developed and my mindset. Children do have the capacity to change. I made a choice and I developed the will to stick to it. I didn't come to prison as a criminal, and I refused to become one just to fit in. You know, I made a mistake, and that was it.
Jeez. Wow, Curt, that is what a very touching story. And again, I am just so sorry. Our system has failed you. Society failed you. Again, you know, my mind just keeps going back to, you know, you were a kid. You were a 16-year-old kid. And yeah, I'm so sorry you've had to endure this. But I do have to ask you another question. I know you said you have judicial review after 25 years, which would be coming up soon if you're at your 23rd year. So projecting just a little bit and thinking a little bit forward, if the gates were to open tomorrow for you, what would you set out to do?
I would seek to build on the foundation that I've already started here. I would definitely promote and encourage more advocacy work for our incarcerated youth and for some of the older guys serving long-term sentences who have changed their lives. I have talents to be successful in so many different areas if just given the opportunity. My goals are clear to me and I've constructed a path to achieve them. My intentions are to be successful, to be a successful author and artist and bring my music to the world, uplifting music born out of pain and grief. I would seek to create a realistic path where victims' families are told the absolute truth about those who were accused of committing crimes against them, and to compensate victims for crimes that were committed against them. They need a different view of things, not just some biased prosecutor's version of events, which we can see in numerous cases have been wrong, with all the convictions that have been overturned, all the unjust sentences that were handed out to individuals in this country.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I'm sure a lot of those lessons were learned. I know they were learned the hard way. And, again, like I said, I thank you for your candor because I couldn't imagine 16. My son was 18 when he went in. And I couldn't imagine at 16. So I just kind of blown away here. So I'm sorry for stuttering, and I'll get on with. I do have one last question for you, and you know that a lot of the advocates here on the outside Heart and a lot of the other groups and organizations take the time to meet with and talk with legislators and go to Tallahassee, show up for Lobby Day, and we've done a few Zoom calls with some of our politicians here. And I wanted to ask you, you specifically, if you had the opportunity to sit down with one of our legislators, in your own words, what would you want to say to one of our legislators here in Florida?
Well, I want legislators to know that men can change if given the resources and opportunities to do so. We are still humans and subject to human nature, no doubt. When a man finally decides that he's had enough, then he's ready to change his life. We need programs that can fill the void of the things that these men leave behind. Just don't throw men into prisons without getting to the real root of their problems. Open some of these doors for the men who've done 25 or 30 years. These men are tired. They're not going to go back out there in the world and commit more crimes. And give us a chance to demonstrate this. And for men like me, locked up since I was a kid, help us. That's what we need. I mean, we need the help. And we can't do this without your help. People really have to take a realistic approach to how they deal with individuals, especially young men and women who get caught up based upon peer influences and things of that nature. It is undeniable that a kid can change his life. I remember a quote by Martin Luther King, and he said that every man is the heir to a legacy of dignity. But sadly, this is not put into practice in our society. I was railroaded like so many others, and it was hidden behind the wall of the criminal justice system. That was designed to oppress and trample over the ignorant. And when you're 16 years old, you don't have much to think with. And I believe that I will overcome this wrong that was done to me.
Okay, Curt, I won't take up any more of your time. I just really speechless here, and I makes me want to work all the more, get tougher and harder fighting for change. I just, I'm 16 years old is just still stuck in my head. Um, and my advocacy just doesn't seem like it's quite enough, that, there are still men and women like you in a similar situation still sitting in our prisons today, and it's horrific. And I'm just so very sorry for what you've endured from your youth until now. So I can't thank you enough for the time that you've given us today, for your candor, and for just being brutally honest with us about, what the system has done and how it failed you.
And I would like to say this before I leave you, and to those watching and listening. This situation caused me to spiral down into a deep depression for years of my life. My purpose was muted. I felt worthless. I felt hopeless. I wanted to die. But I had to overcome me and look deeper inside.
You make a good point.
Find the answers that gave me validation as to why I need to keep living. I have spent a lifetime behind these walls for a murder that I did not commit. Yet through it all, I found purpose, and I tapped into an identity rich with possibility. What's done is done. We can't change the past, but we have the power to determine our attitudes as it meets the future. And I appreciate all that you do. God bless.
So I do want to thank you, and on behalf of the rest of the team here at Heart, we are with you. We stand beside you. We are fighting for you, and we're going to fight until they get it right. So once again, on behalf of everyone here at Heart, just thank you so much for your time and for your candor, and I will be in touch. So take care, and God bless.